Blessings on this 8th Sunday after Pentecost. Our lesson today is from Luke's account, the 12th chapter, 13 through 21. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" And he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. And he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." And then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." When I was a boy last week, I was fascinated with the idea of digging up buried treasure. First, I'd find a treasure map rolled up in an old parchment paper. I'd unroll it carefully, and there I would search and find the X to mark the spot. The treasure. What motivates treasure hunters? Is it the excitement of the hunt? Perhaps the danger, the notoriety? Or is it only a desire to gain wealth? Older now and perhaps wiser, we've learned not all treasures are silver and gold. What would you say are the treasures you've hunted for or are now hunting? Are my old treasures in the nature of real estate, a bank account, a brokerage account? In unpacking a box recently, a box like you have, I'm quite sure, I found the symbols of treasures I had searched for and hunted in my past. Old diplomas, professional certifications, licenses, and such things. Each one represents a treasure to me at one time. Something I had once hunted and thought to be of great value. When we find those symbols of old treasures in the cobwebs of an attic or storeroom, we might ask, how valuable or important was that treasure? The treasures we hunt for in life change as we age, don't they? And what we once thought of as a great treasure fades into the shadows of history once it's been secured, to be replaced by a new treasure to hunt. We humans are a species of treasure hunters, and treasures are moving targets that attract our attention once our basic needs have been met. The question Jesus raises in the parable of the rich fool is whether, with all the treasures I have found in life, am I rich toward God? This parable of the wealthy, greedy fool indicates both what not to do, store our treasures for ourselves, but only a vague idea that we are to use our treasure to be rich toward God. What did he mean to be rich toward God? The question to answer is not, what do I value above all else, but whether I am greedily hoarding my treasure where they're gathering dust and cobwebs. Jesus told us to be on guard for all kinds of greed, and that we are to be rich toward God. Jesus is asking How is our treasure being used? How is our treasure earmarked for the benefit of others? As you know, greed is that intense, selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or some object, land perhaps, a larger share in the market, or food. We can also be greedy with our time, our talent, and money. Since I only have a finite amount of time, I might guard it carefully, even hoard it, using it only for myself. When I'm being greedy with my time, I can get upset when others impinge on my time. Along with my time, I may also be greedy and miserly with my talents. And there's no question that we can be greedy with money. Money represents power, freedom, opportunity, and security. Greed for time, talent, and money is illustrated in a contemporary story. It's about a former medical pathologist, now 85 years old, who bought an island in Long Island Sound. Who wouldn't dream of owning a small island? His purpose was to have a place to get away, to be able to think. Now, after years of time, effort, and the expense of $8 million building his home on his island, he said all he ever thought about was how much money he was spending. House completed, he spent one night in his new house on his island and promptly put it on the market. Now, if you're looking for an island getaway, it might still be available. He concluded, it's not about me or my wishes or dreams anymore. I can dream in a chair. The Apostle Paul reminds us that the value of what we treasure is measured by whether it draws us closer to eternity with God. At another time, Jesus said, where our treasure is, there our heart will also be. And don't store up treasures on earth that can be stolen or decay. Instead, store up treasures in heaven, which will be secure. Now, what are the heavenly treasures we are to store? How can we be rich toward God? What does the Lord require of us? Why not begin with Christ's recommendation? We are to act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. The rich man in Jesus' story today was called a fool by God. But why? Not because he was a good farmer or a good businessman, not because he was prudent, nor was he a fool because he worked hard and saved for his future. By worldly standards then and today, he's to be admired. He's smart, forward-thinking, wealthy, and seems by worldly standards to be anything but a fool. Still, God called him a fool because the motivation for his industrious work and worldly success was centered on himself alone, no one else. His prime objectives? Protect his wealth, his treasures, so he alone could eat, drink, and be merry in retirement. Left out of many stewardship sermons on the litanies of how we use our time, talent, and money is the discovery and use of our greatest treasure, the great treasure of emotional empathy. It's empathy that unlocks the worldly treasures needed to fulfill Christ's directive to be rich toward God. Empathy is to have concern about others. Being rich toward God, our treasure of empathy enables friendships to form. It bridges gaps between strangers. It enables enemies to reconcile, and only with empathy can we respond in love to those in need, to aliens and immigrants. This gets to the heart of what the rich man lacked. With a practiced use of empathy, the treasure hunt can end by being rich toward God. The fool acted wisely by world standards, but unwisely by Christ's model. All the fool did, he did for himself. How different are our own plans. Our true treasure, according to Christ's model, is found not in what we possess, but in how we unlock our treasures. Am I rich toward others? Nowhere in the fool's plans were goals to act justly on behalf of those treated unfairly. No thought given to showing mercy to those in need. No gratitude toward his workers, or for the land he had, or the crops he grew due to the rain that fell and the sun that shone day after day. He was rich. If he was only rich in greed. Greed feeds on itself, leaving one alone in the world. The rich fool believes his or her success comes from securing worldly material wealth from his or her own efforts. The fool fails to factor that the length of life is measured on an eternal scale, not one measured temporally in days or years before we die. A fool's calculus is based upon the fantasy of living a long, long physical life, period. So long, in fact, that her or his savings will never be depleted. And today, we call that good financial planning. The writer of Ecclesiastes called it vanity, self-love, self-admiration, arrogance, narcissism. All fools, per our parable, fail to factor another reality into their grand plans. Everything we work for and amass materially will one day be placed into the hands of someone else. God only knows if they will be wise in the use of what they temporarily inherit. There's a better chance they will be rich toward God if they observe us being rich toward God. And may the treasure of each day be a time to appreciate God's blessing us with the lasting treasures of spiritual wisdom, faith, empathy, and another day to end any fruitless treasure hunt we may be on. Let's follow Christ's model for being rich toward God by acting justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with our Creator and our neighbors. Amen.